I'm hearing some things in this interview that we hadn't heard before. Plus, we got a very alarming statement in another interview about Ron Logan. All that being said, everything's alleged. Welcome to The Point. Let's get to it.
But Allen's defense team believes the jury convicted the wrong man. Tonight, they're speaking to our Caitlin Kendall for the first time since a gag order on the case was lifted.
If Richard Allen is not guilty, no justice was served. There was no justice for Abby and Libby. There's no justice for Richard Allen, and there's no justice for the people of Indiana.
And that's the truth of the statement. When you talk about an injustice or a perceived injustice, you deny justice for the actual victims. The tragedy in this story is what happened to Abby and Libby. I've never shied away from that. They absolutely do deserve justice, which is why I have the problem when it comes to Richard Allen. What blows my mind within this story is that everybody should be saying he at least deserves a new trial. Now, I don't know if that's because people don't care because of who the victim is and who the suspect is, but to me it's a travesty. The defense cannot put on a proper defense, and that tarnishes what would be considered justice. Now, within this particular trial, based off everything I heard, I am of the belief that Richard Allen didn't do it. I am of the belief that the state cannot prove their case. And there were multiple issues that we've talked about in previous videos. And not having a valid third-party defense is one of those issues. It should be considered a problem all of us need to be worried about. Because if it can happen to one of us, it can happen to all of us.
Strong opinions from one of Richard Allen's defense attorneys, Jennifer Auger and Andrew Baldwin, believe Abby Williams and Libby German's kids are still out there.
I do too.
Despite evidence presented at trial and 12 jurors finding him guilty. Do you guys feel Richard Allen had a fair trial?
I think that had the evidence presented, we would have had it.
Absolutely.
To say whether it's fair or not, we get it. I don't know what our ethical. You know how I feel about that. Come on.
It's absolutely obvious how this man feels. You can see it on his face. Now, originally, a lot of people were making videos saying, well, this is just the defense being the defense. They're obligated to state that their client is innocent. They're going to do things to make everybody believe their client is innocent. They're not going to actually say this man committed that crime. But when you listen to them talk in these interviews, you can absolutely hear sadness. You can hear confusion. You can hear anger. So when they speak on this particular case, I don't believe they're just saying this to say it. I don't believe they're just being defense attorneys who know their client's going through an appeal. I legitimately believe that they believe he's innocent. And that's not an impossible thing to believe when you consider that I believe he's innocent.
The defense feels the exclusion of third-party evidence limited its ability to present a full defense for Allen. Judge Fran Gull ruled there was no link between people the defense felt were suspects and the teens.
This jury wanted to convict someone. They feel that that's their job. And with no one else to point the finger to, I believe that had our third-party evidence come out, this would have ended differently.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we heard on that other juror interview, while that is only one juror, it came up about who else did it. If not Richard Allen, then who? That is a common question jurors ask. They are predisposed to believe the state is right. So if you're not allowed to offer a valid alternative suspect or a valid alternative theory, the odds are the verdict is going to come up guilty. And that's already a steep hill to climb from a defense attorney perspective. They're already up against the 8-ball as they make their opening statement. So many people believe the prosecution is right. And they believe law enforcement is incapable of making mistakes. But the reality is we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all make errors. It's just a part of life. And the defense being denied what they were denied is an absolute slap in the face of justice.
You say, who won the day? You know, and when the state was going every day, we felt like we won the day, we won the day, we won the day. And there was a couple days where we tied, we felt, and maybe we lost one day. And so I think it's crazy that we were surprised that we had a guilty verdict. But
I was legitimately thinking he at the very least was going to get a mistrial, given that they were denied a valid argument against what the state was saying. I had felt like after the trial that he was innocent. I said it in a video. And for the jury to come back guilty just absolutely took my breath away. It absolutely shocked me. How are you on one hand going to say the bullet had nothing to do with your decision when the bullet was everything the state was saying tied Richard Allen to the crime? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Walk me through those days of waiting for the jury to reach their verdict.
When the jury came back and looked at the evidence they did, I was a little
She's
worried
about to cry.
They were so intently listening to the video from Libby's phone.
And let's talk about Bridge Guy for a minute. My last video in this particular story talking about Ron Logan brought up that he knew key details of the crime before anybody else did. He allegedly confessed to the weapon used during the crime and he knew where that weapon was used. And we also talked about that his ex-girlfriend told law enforcement they believed him to be Bridge Guy. They said he had problems, he had anger issues, and when she saw that video, she absolutely knew that was Ron Logan. And of course he was cleared, he was never charged with the crime. Well, she went on NewsNation and gave an interview. We're not going to play the interview because I know how a lot of y'all feel about Banfield. But she made a couple of very interesting statements that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with. Logan's ex-girlfriend, Connie Dillman, joined Banfield Thursday with her take on the story. I know when he walks. I just had that intuition, Dillman said in a response to the video recorded on German's phone of a man walking on a bridge used as evidence in the case. Dillman claims that as soon as she saw the video about Bridge Guy, she knew it was her ex-boyfriend. I know his build, and to me, that looks exactly like him. I mean, even when I see the voice, it sounded just like him, she said. Describing their relationship as very volatile and Logan as aggressive and manipulated, Dillman said her gut tells her he was involved. It's not something I really want to relive, but I just know his nature. I know his property, Dillman said. I'm just going with my gut feeling, just the kind of person he is. And this is the concerning part of the interview that I don't think a lot of people are familiar about. Logan allegedly had interest in younger girls according to Dillman, which led to fights between the couple. He sold a horse to a girl who didn't live far from there. She was 13 actually. And he was touchy with her, she said. It just didn't feel right with me. And let's remember in that alleged confession what was said. That alleged confession said that he lured those two girls onto his property by saying, you want to come look at my horses or look at my animals. And in this particular interview, she's saying that they got in a lot of arguments over how he acted around younger girls. I mean, if all this is true, it's absolutely sick, twisted, and demented. Because nobody has came out and said anything like that about Richard Allen. So how is there not a connection here? I don't quite understand that. The judge said there's no nexus. Okay, well, she's the judge. She can decide what she wants. But that doesn't necessarily make it accurate. Which is why we have appeals in our country. To say there's no nexus here, but there's a nexus between Richard Allen and this crime scene is absolutely crazy to me. Especially when you consider the key piece of evidence was disregarded by at least one juror. So how is that a nexus? I mean, I get it. Richard Allen was at the park that day. And because he was at the park that day, people are saying he's guilty. It just doesn't make sense. Are you telling me anybody who goes for a walk at a park where there happens to be a crime committed, they are automatically a suspect? I mean, that is wild. But there's more. Check this out.
That it was coming down to that was worrisome to me when we felt that we had so much reasonable doubt. The timeline, the data from the phone, the lack of evidence, the lack of any in-court identification.
Exactly. What evidence did they have?
Those words, we the jury find Richard Allen guilty, guilty, guilty. What was that moment like for you guys, and how do you pick up and walk out of the courtroom?
Difficult.
Listen to the heartache.
It's numbing.
Gutting, yeah.
I mean, you actually ask yourself, did they just say guilty? But then you look, and there's Richard Allen, and you're like, and there's Kathy out there, and that is when it becomes really hard. It becomes super hard at that point because it's like, what am I even caring about me? This guy's going to have to go back to prison. He's ill-equipped to be in prison with his mental health issues.
How did he end up back in Westville? I will never be able to wrap my mind around that. It's absolutely crazy.
We are all very committed to Richard Allen. We care about him deeply, his family, and the case and justice. And we feel strongly in our position. None of us are walking away from Richard Allen.
This is alarming words.
For a second trial, we are ready and willing to take that on.
Baldwin admits the defense team could be too emotionally attached to provide the best representation for Allen, but they don't want to walk away either.
We actually believe in his innocence. We actually would want to be in the fight in the future, but because we want to make sure that he gets the best representation. If it isn't us, I will suck up my pride and let somebody else take on that role. But it'd be hard because there's so much out there.
Well, that was just a portion of Caitlin's 45-minute conversation with the defense team. They also discussed preparing for the trial.
It would be an absolute crap situation if Richard Allen was granted the retrial that we all believe he deserves, and this defense team can't represent him. I understand what they're saying. They're taking a lot of this personal. And when you take some of this stuff personal, it could cloud your judgment, and I hope it doesn't come to that, because I absolutely believe that these attorneys have Richard Allen's best interest in mind. And I believe they're going to legitimately fight to the best of their ability to prove their case. And had they originally been able to prove their case with the evidence that was actually available, the outcome of this situation may have been different. But it's concerning language to hear them speak as if there's a chance they won't be representing him in another trial if it comes to that. Because the stuff they went through, the stuff the state put them through to get to this particular point was absolutely absurd. I mean, they were kicked off the case. They offered to do the case for free. They had to go to the Supreme Court just to represent their client. Richard Allen wanted their representation. And I would make a statement about that motion to correct errors, but we already know Judge Gull is going to deny all that. But I have never heard those attorneys speak about this particular situation in that manner, as if there is a possibility they may not represent Richard Allen in the future. But those are my thoughts. I'm more curious to hear about yours, and if you enjoy this and a more fair, open conversation, maybe check one of these videos out. Y'all be safe now.